the hour, so we're going to get started. And I just want to say a very warm welcome, everyone, to the ACMP ICF webinar, Artificial Intelligence's Role in Coaching and Change Management. Please do let us know where you are from in the chat, and do share your name and what you do as well. Before we begin, we just wanted to share that you can use Wordly for live translation and transcription in 20+ languages, and we will put more info on that in the chat. We are absolutely delighted by the turnout today, and so many of you have taken the time to join from all parts of the world. Welcome. This webinar is co-sponsored by the Association of Change Management Professionals, ACMP, and the International Coaching Federation, ICF. My name is Deshni Newman, and I am the CEO of the Association of Change Management Professionals. On behalf of ACMP Global and Magda Mook, CEO of the International Coaching Federation, I am privileged to welcome you to another excellent webinar presented to you through the collaboration between ICF and ACMP. I would like to give a shout out to our awesome joint task force for making this webinar happen. Two members of our ACMP ICF task force, Theresa Moulton and Dr. Dan V, will be facilitating the panel today. ACMP and ICF share a mission to support our members with community engagement and education, and to support our professionals with global practice standards, certifications, and a code of ethics. To get us grounded, here's ACMP's working definition of change management, and here is ICF's definition of coaching. I am sure many of you on the call are familiar with one or both of these definitions. In 2020, ICF and ACMP created a joint task force to proactively explore the many synergies between change management and coaching and enhance on the MOU between our organizations. Do reference our webpage in the chat to learn more about the work of the task force. And now it gives me great pleasure to introduce Theresa Moulton, who is known to many of you, who will be our moderator of today's panel and who is also on the joint task force. Theresa is a senior change advisor and consultant, editor-in-chief of Change Management Review. Theresa, over to you.
Thank you, Deshni. Welcome, everybody. We are excited to have you here to talk about artificial intelligence's role in coaching and change management. We have some great experts here who have specialized in intelligence on different aspects of these items, and we really want to make sure that you get a full range of understanding and coverage on the topic at hand. Specifically, we're going to talk about how AI is reshaping traditional coaching and change management methodologies. We'll also cover ethical considerations for application of AI in coaching and change management. Next will be strategies to overcome resistance to AI adoption. We'll be covering real-world examples showcasing scalable, cost-effective AI solutions, and we'll be talking about frameworks for human-AI collaboration, implementation, and adoption. Before we introduce our speakers, I want to share two housekeeping items. First of all, today's recording will be posted on the ACMP Resource Library and the ICF Learning Portal for members within the next week. It will also be included in the post-event email to everyone who registered for the event and on the ACMP YouTube channel. Secondly, we will have time to ask the panelists your questions, so please add those to the Q&A box that you can see the location of on this slide, not the chat function, as we might be comfortable with doing in smaller meetings. We're really looking for you to use the Q&A function for this webinar. We may not be able to get to all of your questions, but we'll try to theme them together so we can cover more ground. Dr. Dan V. will monitor the questions as they come in, identify common themes and interests, and then he'll moderate the Q&A portion with our panelists. And now I'm really excited to introduce our panelists. We've got three incredible experts in the field. First, we have Dima Syrotkin. He's the CEO of Pandatron, a leading AI coaching company. He has a background in leadership, entrepreneurship, and management consulting. He holds degrees in IT and management, is pursuing a PhD at Aalto University, and has founded multiple startups, successfully selling one. He is also on the board of ACMP Global. Welcome, Dima. Sam Isaacson is the founder and managing director of Coachtech Limited out of London in the UK. He is a coaching consultant and thought leader with a diverse career spanning some of the world's biggest professional services firms, including Grant Thornton UK and a high-growth technology startup. Sam has written several books on coaching and technology and has worked as an advisor for several of the big coaching professional bodies. He is the founder and host of the Coachtech Collective and co-founder of AIcoach.chat. Welcome, Sam. And next we have Tim Creasey. He is an internationally recognized authority on change management and the Chief Innovation Officer at Prosci, where he has spent more than 2 decades advancing the discipline of change. Tim has helped shape Prosci's research-based methodologies used to drive adoption and outcomes around the world. His expertise spans diverse industries, guiding leaders to integrate effective change strategies into complex, evolving environments. At the forefront of the AI transformation, Tim's current work centers on how organizations can leverage AI to unlock human potential and optimize change initiatives. So welcome, Tim. Very nice to have all of you here.
Thank you, Theresa.
You're welcome. Let's see.
Honored to be here.
Very happy to have you. And we're going to go ahead and jump right into the questions because we've got so much expertise and so much ground to cover. The first question is, how do you define AI and how do you see it currently being integrated into the field of coaching and change management? And why don't we start off with Dima on this question?
Yeah, sure. I think the simplest definition of AI, frankly, is a computer system that mimics human abilities, whether that's learning, whether that's reasoning, whether that's execution on tasks. And then I think to the second part of the question of how will it be integrated, what I'm seeing right now is a couple of things. One is individual support, right? Currently, I think one of the big challenges is that we struggle with supporting people in a personalized manner at scale, especially in organizations with tens of thousands of employees. And rather than, just supporting them with superficial things, I believe AI will be able to explore the inner landscape of these people as well. And for example, by talking to someone about their concerns regarding automation, we could discover that really their fears are not just about skill relevance, but about the deeper sense of purpose that maybe they're lacking by going through this transformation. And then I think the second part, besides the individual, is the systemic part. So at the same time, yes, we'll have the microscope and be able to support the individual, but we'll also have the satellites and be able to kind of see the big picture. And there, imagine that you have this AI that supports, each individual. What if you kind of zoom out and look at what's happening across thousands of conversations? And you could see that, it's not just that one person that has this challenge was their sense of purpose, but it's really a collective anxiety in the whole organization. And I think this is something that we could never get with traditional surveys. And this is something that will be different in the next few years already.
Thanks, Dima. And Tim, over to you. What do you think is actually going to happen with AI in the field of coaching and change management?
Yeah, thank you, Theresa. I kind of describe AI as a body of capabilities that can take in digital information, do stuff to that digital information, and then churn out digital information. The very first of those capabilities, November 22, was the ability to make sense of a string of words and reply back with a string of words that made sense to the user. That was really the unlock that 3.5 gave us. Over the last 2.5 years, those body of capabilities, though, have continued to grow to where AI can see a document, see a picture, hear a sound. It can generate strings of words, but can also generate images, can generate videos, can analyze data, access the web, start to make logical deductions out of the context it's given. So to me, it's really a digital information mashup artist that uses really crazy high-end math to do it. In change management, we're seeing it show up sort of in two different places. In the craft of change management, how we do the work of change, managing the people side of organizational change, and as the content. That AI adoption is a focus that we as change practitioners are going to need to step into and support people and organizations through. And in the Prosci way, we've done research on both of those things. And so we started to build out a body of knowledge around how change practitioners can do their work at higher quality, in less time, with less mental strain, and with more enjoyment when they effectively integrate AI into how they work, and then how they can support their people through those individual journeys of becoming an AI adept employee in an AI adept workplace.
Thanks, Tim. And Sam, what strategies have you found most effective in reducing resistance among coaches and change management professionals who are apprehensive about adopting AI?
I mean, that is a really important question, because technology is something which doesn't feel like it ought to have much of a space in the world of coaching, which is fundamentally human. It's a human interaction. That's where the power is. And it's really interesting to hear Tim references, back in November 22, we had 3.5, which, if you're a nerd, you know exactly what he's talking about. That was GPT 3.5. And I am such a hyper nerd that in this book here, How to Thrive as a Coach in a Digital World, I wrote it in 2020, and I talked about this thing called GPT-3, which was right in the corner of the internet. And I said, one day something's going to happen that is going to unlock that. And when that happens, coaching is going to need to think about what it is as a profession. I'm a coach much more than change management. And the resistance from coaches, quite understandably, is to say, well, look, it's a human practice. A piece of machinery isn't able to do what the human can. And the challenge for the coaching profession is that for so long, the way we've been taught how to be a good coach is, if you do not interrupt your client and you only ask open questions and you stick neatly to a coaching model like GROW, and I know there are many, many others that are much more complex, but GROW being the simplest version, that makes you a good coach. And unfortunately, a machine is able to do that much, much better than a human can at the moment. And so we're having to wrestle with this idea that actually AI is measurably better at a lot of stuff than a human is. And humans are better at stuff than AI is. And so for us to discover what is it that makes us different, the word I use to describe that is magic, because I don't like to define it. It's something that we don't really understand, but I still know it's important. And so to understand, what's actually going on when you use AI, and the best way to overcome that resistance, in my experience, is to use the system and discover what it's good at and where its obvious failings are. I think that's the way to do it.
Yes, it's interesting because as we were designing this particular program, we were really thinking about where is AI best utilized? And how does it impact coaching, the AI versus the human, and all the points that you just made? And so, Dima, what I'm wondering is what your thoughts are in terms of strategies that you've found most effective in reducing resistance among coaches and change management professionals.
Well, when we work with clients, right, we work with, Panasonic, Mitsubishi, Skanska, like big companies. Typically, people resist losing what matters to them. And so the question is, how can we help people identify what they genuinely value about their work, right? So for example, steering a bit from change, if you think of a healthcare professional, maybe, they want to ensure patient dignity. And it's not really so much about the specific administrative process that really they care about. And I think then it's important to separate, the important stuff like the dignified patient care from the how, the current paperwork systems. And I think that's kind of like a big crux of it. And at the same time, also helping to identify what are the bottlenecks. So a marketing professional might blame technology, learning curve, and the stress that it causes. But then we find out that really the bottleneck is revealing that there's unclear decision-making authority when AI-generated content enters the picture, because it's like, are you to blame or is AI to blame? And, things like that. So I think, the conversation just started, but it's a similar question in change. And what we always tell to our clients is that, look, I don't think that we're replacing you. I think, and I truly believe it, that it's 1 + 1 = 3 in a way where, we are an AI and is an extension of change management team, and they bring the big picture, dealing with stakeholders, mapping out the plan, understanding whether that's a really, good thing to do. And we can bring that personalized kind of approach of talking to thousands of employees that even if they wanted to, they just cannot do that right now, and then bringing that intelligence back. So in many ways, when we try to make them the hero of the story and tell, look, if you use tools like this, maybe you become, super important to the organization, because currently, change is still this thing that's, not very well respected, unfortunately, right? But then if you could really show the ROI to the CEO and be like, look, we just shifted from combustion engines to electric engines, and we did everything in a year, and now we're beating Tesla, and the stock price is going up, like, and I'm the person who did it. It's like, okay, well, I mean, maybe you should be on the board, and maybe you should be, maybe we need to have a C-level person that's driving change and stuff like that. Yeah. So that's my initial thoughts.
Thanks, Dima. Tim, I'd love to hear what you have to say on this topic.
Yeah, thank you, Theresa. And Dima, I love that notion of elevating purpose and helping people find what it is they're there to do. I think about how do we help individuals through their own resistance to engaging this new tool. And then we also do research on what are the organizational conditions that create the conditions for success for AI. And we've done research sort of on both of those. I think on the individual side, it's really around establishing the mindset of AI as an intern to help you get the work done you're doing, rather than an oracle, an all-knowing, omniscient oracle. And once we get the mindset oriented, and we have all kinds of workshops and tools and fun things to make that happen, it is a whole different relationship we have, because we are steering the relationship of how we are engaging the tool rather than waiting for what AI is going to do for us, or to us, I guess. On the organizational conditions, it was interesting. Again, 1,107 study participants, executives, team leaders, frontline employees. These were the 6 conditions that fell out as driving the conditions for good adoption. A strong supportive leader, no surprise there. They are taking on bigger, more transformative efforts rather than little tiny things. Those are the ones that are having more success. They are controlled. They have a controlled openness with their data. Those that were struggling had an extreme level of cautiousness that was inhibiting this move. They encouraged experimentation. They were transparent with their decision making, and they built widespread knowledge and access. And so I've got some research excerpts I can chat in so people can get a hold of the actual research. But to me, it's how do I help a person engage with this new technology in a new way effectively, and how do I set the conditions in the organization so that AI becomes a differentiator that we know that it can.
Great. Thanks, Tim. Sam, how do you see the balance between the human elements of coaching and change management within the adoption and integration of AI?
I mean, we are fundamentally humans, and so it's everything, isn't it? You know, I think I talk about this idea of magic being there in a human relationship, and that is really important for me. So I'm seeing my parents in a couple of weeks' time. I'm going to go and visit them. It's the Easter holidays. I'll take the kids up. We'll see my parents. I'm not being funny. I've seen my parents loads. I was in their house basically every day until I was the age of 18. If it was anything else, I should be bored. I should be bored of seeing them. And if I had to use a piece of technology every day for 18 years straight, I would be fundamentally bored of that piece of technology. But I'm not bored of seeing my parents. I'm really looking forward to seeing them. And I can't describe to you why. I don't care why. I just really like seeing them, and I'm really looking forward to it. And I think there's something about that is present when we're thinking about our interactions with humans that isn't present there with machines. When we use a machine for the first time, it appears to be magic. And then after a while, it grows old. You know, if you've used a first generation iPhone recently, you know, it's very slow. It doesn't do what you want it to. It's not smart at all. So I think when it comes to adopting new technologies like this, it's important. I completely agree with everything that Tim has said. I'm not surprised those are the sorts of findings that have come out. It's the same sort of experience that I've had as well. That having a level of openness to be able to experiment and a desire to see good outcomes and support from the top. You know, I think there's too much that's said about this sort of a message that needs to come from a middle of an organization. I think if senior people are on board with something, then it tends to make a difference. But a willingness to be able to explore and see what's possible, and then you learn what it's good at. And so I think one of the big issues that people have when they're using AI, one of the big questions that people ask when I run sessions with people is, how do I get it to get me the answer as quick as possible? And I think if you're looking for it to give you an answer, you're probably using it wrong. It's there as a support assistance, but you know, it shouldn't be there as some sort of guru mentor for you.
Great insight, Sam. Tim, back over to you. How do you see the human element and AI component evolving over the next decade?
Yeah, I think first of all, anybody trying to tell you what's happening a decade from now is
Right.
probably selling beachfront property in Ohio because, well, I guess they have the lake there, maybe Iowa. But I think my favorite over beer or over coffee conversation is to talk about how do we break our work into 3 buckets. We call this our AI integration framework. The first bucket is called my work. That's always going to be Tim work. One bucket is called for me work that AI might be able to fully automate at some point. And then there's this middle magic bucket called with me work. What is the work where I can bring AI along with me to achieve better outcomes faster with less mental strain and more enjoyment, and sometimes even magical outcomes I could have never done before? And so I think the notion of purpose and the notion of helping people step into and overcome their fears is really about helping them begin by saying, what is your work? What's your my work? What's your with me work? And what's your for me work? And how can you start to architect that relationship with AI? Now, as AI's capabilities continue to emerge, my tasks will shift between the for me work, with me work, and my work as I become more comfortable with the intern, and as the AI intern gets more and more capabilities. So that's kind of how I think it's going to continue to evolve. I think we're watching this fascinating chasm emerge around the capabilities of AI and organizational understanding and literacy with it. And I think that's a fascinating thing for change agents and coaches to navigate. Is Sam and I could probably geek out about GPT-4o's multimodal image generation and how much better it is than DALL-E 3, but there's a lot of us who are still at I watched it write a poem, or I used it to get some support for a vacation plan. And so that dichotomy, I think, is going to be really fascinating.
Yeah. And Tim, while I have you, could you give just a couple of examples for those of us who are newer to AI and change management of the types of work activities the intern would do?
Yeah, so the my work as a change practitioner would be maintaining relationships, having those tough negotiations, stepping in and helping people when they're having challenge. The kind of people work we get into change to do. The with me and for me work would be things like one of my other favorite phrases in the AI space is first drafts in a flash. First drafts in a flash. You have to put SME polish on it. Otherwise, there's trouble when we take our hands off the wheel. But to get a first draft in a flash of a communication about an upcoming change. And then one of the other things, the capabilities that AI has, that body of capability, is text flexing. It can take bodies of text and flex it for length, audience, tone. And so it's really good at that. And so as a change practitioner, what would have taken me 2 hours to draft 3 different emails to 3 different audiences with 3 different tones, I got that the first draft in a flash done in 20 minutes. And do you know what I get to do with the other hour and 40 minutes? The people side work that brought me to this thing in the first place. And so that's what it's about, is unlocking the human potential and the things that make you feel human at work by letting the robot do the stuff that it's really good and help you do that stuff at work.
Thank you so much. Dima, how do you see the human element and AI component evolving over the next decade?
I think that it will evolve from seeing this as humans versus AI, kind of like win competition or race, to a bit more like a dance, between partners where, everyone has their unique strength and sort of brings them to the table. I think, AI excels at processing vast amounts of information, recognizing patterns, generating alternatives, and kind of helping you to brainstorm. But then I think humans bring contextual wisdom. They bring ethical judgment. They can take creative leaps. And as an example, a financial advisor, they might use AI to help them analyze data and see patterns in it. And then it will free up their mental space for the deeply human work of understanding their client's emotional, relationship with money and the unexpressed, hopes and fears, ultimately providing better guidance. And I think that might kind of shift the skills landscape. And I think rather than asking, okay, what will AI replace? I think we should ask, how might AI amplify what I'm genuinely uniquely good at? Or, what meaningful work might become possible when routine tasks that I'm currently doing no longer consume my attention. So yeah, I think that's in a sum, that's my hope, and I'm trying to actively contribute to that with our work, where we work as a sort of an extension of change management teams rather than, and really making them a hero of the story.
That's great. And Dima, just one more clarification in terms of how AI actually enables coaching. Could you give some examples on some of the specific activities that it does and how it works?
Yeah. I would say that the main functions are, number one, creating a safe space. We call it coaching, but the other way to think about it is almost like a learning diary or, AI diary. And so weirdly enough, people often feel safer than they would feel with human coaches. So I think psychological safety is, for example, super important in any change. So I think that's one. I think brainstorming is a big one. I think someone in chat dropped that, like, oh, I was a bit afraid of using AI in coaching before, but then now I use ChatGPT and it helps me brainstorm ideas. It's really good to get brainstorming ideas. And I recommend Claude for everyone who is listening, because it's even better. And it's living in San Francisco, it feels like one of the actually ethical AI companies. And so the brainstorming is another. I think, helping people understand their emotional landscape through reflection, I think, is another big one, right? Where you like that example was like understanding that, oh, it's really threatening my identity. That's the reason why I'm resisting. It's not about a specific process. That can be a huge discovery, because then, if we are aware, then we can work with something like that. And then, of course, goal setting and follow-ups, right? So it's like, okay, how do we break this down into something small we can do today, and then following up on that tomorrow. And I think, again, the conversation is just starting, because I think people think of it as like ChatGPT, like this is like the text and I talk to it. There's so much more we're building around that, right? You will be able to talk to it, you will be able to see it, you will have gamification like in Duolingo, it will, save insights and notes. Me and Sam probably can both talk about that for ages, working on like somewhat similar things.
Thank you. Sam,
Theresa, can I ask him a question? Because
yeah.
I'm a little bit farther away from the coaching. Are you using like a facial recognition to do sort of like sentiment analysis, even in the not
Not
that
at, not
level
at the
yet.
moment. I
Yeah.
also don't think that that's the immediate thing that will be needed. I think that the breakthrough technology right now seems to be like, in terms of like intonation and understanding, is just like feeding like it was like Sesame. It was like the state of the art kind of like demo that came out for voice. It really sounds like it's a human. And the reason is it actually doesn't even understand your intonation. The way they did it is that they just feed it more context. So the way it currently works is that the AI just receives the last sentence and then it like tries to voice it out, but then it doesn't have any context. So it doesn't know like, should I be sad? Should I be happy? Whatever, but here they gave it all the context, and then they know based on the context, they're like, oh, I need to say it that way. So I think before all the like facial recognition, which is like, oh my God, like all the privacy concerns there, I think we can do like things that are like a lot simpler, but even more effective.
Fascinating.
Does that answer your question, Tim?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think these are the frontiers that we'll continue to expand and explore, right? And yeah,
Right.
the voice and vision together, I think, is a huge. That'll be a fantastic. It was like one of those dropped in December, and like, well, kind of went by the wayside. But I can walk out and show it my grill and say, my grill's not working. Tell me what kind of grill it is. Now help me troubleshoot it with my phone. Like,
And the last
That's
short thing
amazing.
I'll add, think about the peer-to-peer level. So you have the individual level, you support the individual, you have the systemic level, you see the big picture. What if you also connect individuals? For example, they're working on the same thing. Can you connect them and say, hey, like you guys have the same challenge, maybe you can help each other. Or maybe someone has already did this thing and they can be a mentor for someone else. So that like collective learning is also huge.
Fantastic. Just moving topics. Sam, what do you think some of the ethical concerns, such as confidentiality around AI implementation within coaching and change management are?
I mean, that is a massive question, and it comes up in every webinar that I am involved in terms of coaching and the use of AI. And it's very interesting because you've just used a very important word for coaches, confidentiality. That's a sacred cow for us. When Dima was talking just then about image recognition, he used the word privacy, which is a different word, but we hear them as if they're the same. If something, data privacy, information security, and confidentiality, they're all really important and they're all different. And when we're talking about interacting with an AI system, we have this idea, well, my data is going into this system, and then where's it going? Who's using it? I don't know, therefore I'm concerned about confidentiality. And when somebody says that to me, I say, what on earth do you think that Zoom is doing? For years, we have been having one-to-one conversations with me, my one, and my coaching client, and a company that employs tens of thousands of people who, some number of them have got access to my conversation. They need to for technical support purposes. Do you know how many there are? No, of course you don't. None of us do, but we trust the system. And then when we take the individual out of it, so that, as Dima was saying, it's just you interacting with a machine, there is no human present. No wonder we trust that ability to be able to open up there, because now we're free from judgment. It's just the machine that's reading it. So in many ways, not in every way, in many ways, using an AI system increases the level of confidentiality that we have in a coaching conversation. And to a general extent, the security controls are in place, and data privacy regulation is also being enacted in an appropriate way, being adopted, particularly if it's based in the EU, because GDPR controls are extremely high. But I think some of the other issues that come out typically in these sorts of environments are issues around the idea of bias in data sets. And let's just state that, we've got 3 experts on this panel today and we're all white men. That's not by chance. It's because it's white men who typically are interested in this sort of thing and just get drawn into it. So it's, it is just there, it's present. I think it's often overstated, and it's actually relatively straightforward to put controls in place, so long as you're mature and informed about it. Another concern that comes up, which is an important one, is the environmental impact. And I think that things are being put in place to be able to address that as much as is possible, but it is something that is present. However, all of that being the background, I'm not so concerned about those things when I think in comparison to the question around who is shaping the technology that's going to be used in coaching and change management in, say, 5 or 10 years' time. because I think I would like to think that it is going to be coaches who are informing the future of the coaching profession. And then I think, well, it's probably more likely to be technologists and venture capitalists if we're not careful. And it's great to have people who are on the call today who are coaches, who are interested in this topic. And rather than coming on something like this today and going, oh, that's interesting, I can tick off my CCEUs for the quarter, to think, right, I'm going to get my hands dirty. Like, I'll just say, I'm running a program in the next couple of months to say, here's how to set up an automation platform using AI. Do something like that. It doesn't have to be with me, do it with somebody else, but get yourself upskilled to be understanding how to actually enforce coaching protocols into the next generation of technology, because otherwise, the practice will go away from the people who know most about it.
Thank you for that. Great insights. Tim, I'm wondering how you think organizations can leverage AI tools to measure employee sentiment. And then I want to go to Dima for this.
Yeah, and I'm excited to hear the coaching perspective as well, right? From a change perspective, I think I call it a word mashup artist, and it can take strings of words and make sense of them. And there's real power in that, like Dima had mentioned, when we have lots and lots of strings of words around what we're trying to get a better sense for in the organization, whether that's the pulse of the organization, opinion about a particular initiative or effort that's underway. And so the notion of pattern recognition, because essentially that's what it does, I think is a big opportunity. I'll also flip it a little bit. How can organizations leverage AI tools to measure employee sentiment? If your change practitioners are getting first drafts in a flash so that they can actually spend a bunch more time doing the human to human connection that is what brought us to this work in the first place, it's kind of a secondary benefit of using AI to do the work that's usually between me and a computer screen that elevates the overall ability for me to have a sense and connect with the rest of the organization. So it's kind of an addition, that unlocking the time to be able to go elevate the human connection in the organization. So
Thank you. Dima, what I'm wondering what your thoughts are is about this employee sentiment from the coaching perspective in the work that you're doing. And I know that employee sentiment, comes from using coaching more scalable, like in a higher scalable way across the organization. But what are some of the specific sentiments that you've seen come in from your clients, and how have those impacted the change strategies for the change team?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. To kind of frame that, I think that, currently what we have, and this is why I talk about enabling change teams and coaches, is surveys. And it's like asking people about their driving experience when they're parked in a garage. And instead, what if we could actually talk to people while they're navigating change or while they're navigating their personal transformation? And it's like, having a deep conversation with the driver when they are on a journey. And you asked about like specific answers. So first, let's think about specific questions, right? Often we ask people like, oh, how would you rate your satisfaction with the change program on a scale from 1 to 5? But AI could instead ask you, okay, what metaphor would you use to describe your experience with the new system? And an example could be someone saying, and this is like a quote of like, it's like trying to play a piano with mittens on. I know what I want to do, but I can't quite get to do it. And so this will reveal a lot more than like it's a 3. And the beauty is that AI actually allows you to both have thousands of rich conversations across an organization. So for example, with Panasonic, they now want to scale it to every employee with us, which is like more than 200,000 people. And at the same time, when you scale it to that, to those sizes, you're able to see patterns emerge from those conversations that traditional surveys could never capture. And some examples would be, mid-level managers feeling caught between contradictory expectations between the users and the top management, or even contradictory expectations between different parts of management. It could be a specific department found an innovative, workaround, but no one knows about it. Like that could also be, it could be a good thing that just doesn't get shared.
Right.
And so in many ways, this is like having thousands of focus groups happening simultaneously, where you can both see the patterns, but also preserve individual confidentiality. And you would not only know what people think, but also how are they making meaning of the change, because fundamentally I think that is the deepest level of change management. And where does the momentum exist, what are the hidden patterns, and I think the key is not just generating data. We're flooding in data, it's generating true insight. Like our goal is not just providing data to clients, but providing them one sentence that kind of changes their whole company. And so it's not about the numbers, it's about the story behind the numbers and the why, not the what.
Fantastic.
One of my colleagues at Prosci, I used to, Courtney Schultz, and she runs a management engagement firm now, but she used to use the phrase "words make worlds." And Dima's so right. 2.7 average does not let us know what the world of experience is for that group. And so we use words to describe our experience and describe our words and worlds, and now we're able to make sense of it in a whole new way.
That's a really neat saying. I love that. So in terms of our next question, really wanting to look out a bit into the future. And Sam, I'll start with you, and I'd like to hear from all three of you. How do you see AI in the field of coaching and change management evolving in the future?
I mean, I think the AI everyone said this, so this is not me saying this, and some people are going to go, oh, that's a clever thing to say, Sam. It's not me that's come up with it. The AI that we are using today is the worst AI we're ever going to see in our lives. So the fact that it is able to do a good quality coaching conversation today, and it can, just means it's only going to get better from here on in. Maybe it's going to have voice or image recognition, that sort of thing. Of course it will. I expect it's going to get embodied at a certain stage, and that's going to have another sort of acceleration. Here's where my head with it goes, though. I said right at the beginning, just by accident, actually, that I wrote about GPT-3 here 2 years before anybody really in the real world or knew it existed. If I had said in that book, in 5 years' time, we're going to run a webinar with the ICF and the change management organization, where we're going to have a really popular webinar and the chat's going to be exploding with people talking, you would think I was insane. At the point that I was writing it, people were basically saying it is impossible to do decent coaching if you can't meet in person.
Mm-hmm.
And so my thought really is, what is happening in the corners of the internet that only the nerdiest of nerdy people are interested in? And so for me, I'm looking at blockchain computing, which is actually relatively mainstream now, quantum computing, which is going to explode in the next few years,
Yes.
immersive technologies and smart glasses and wearables, brain-computer interfaces. When these start to combine, humanoid robotics, when these all start to combine with generative AI into the mix as well, that's when we see massive bursts of innovation that will just disrupt things in unexpected ways. And so, I try to keep right up to date every month. What is the latest news? That the community Coachtech Collective, that's what we do there, is like, what's the latest thing that's happening, so that when it comes and our clients are feeling disrupted, that we are able to provide them with the support that they need to weather that change.
Fantastic. And Tim, what are your thoughts on the future of AI coaching and change management?
Yeah, and there's all kinds of random thoughts here, so I'll try to collect them a little bit. The first I'm going to do is suggest Ethan Mollick's Co-Intelligence, which had a link to it in here. The very last chapter, he does a scenario analysis about how these technologies are likely to come to life, and the whole book is beautiful, but that last chapter, every leader should read that chapter in terms of kind of what it looks like. I think the capabilities are going to continue to emerge. We're going to continue to see this rapid expansion. And I love folks like Sam are looking into the corners of the internet. What I'm concerned about is sort of the growing dichotomy between sanctioned and unsanctioned AI use. The sanctioned is that stuff where somebody paid to turn on Copilot for everyone and then was surprised that nobody's actually using it. The unsanctioned AI use is those people that are bringing it in their pocket and still haven't quite brought to the table what it is they're using and how they're using it, and Ethan Mollick does a great job explaining a lot of the reasons why. And so I'm seeing like these different paces of the capability of the technology, the speed at which people are ready to adopt it, and then the speed at which organizations are actually able to absorb and internalize the
Mm-hmm.
capability. And I'm still not even betting, which, yeah, I'm not even sure how that's going to start to pan out, but I think we're starting to see a lot of that tension as uptake of seems like it's really sped up here in the last, handful of months. So the capabilities are going to keep emerging. People are going to innovatively bring it to life, and I'm excited to see if organizations will be able to catch up.
Yeah, and you'll be right in the middle.
Indeed.
Love it. And Dima, what are your thoughts?
I think that, on the metaphor level, it would be less as a GPS that you kind of follow directions. I think it will be more as a hiking guide, sort of, that helps you navigate unfamiliar terrain. And at the same time, it teaches you how to learn navigating that landscape yourself, so you're less reliant on it. And I think, practically, I think we will see three big things evolve. One is AI that's able to help people explore tensions and contradictions rather than, forcing some sort of premature resolution, kind of like a good therapist that knows when to sit with difficulty rather than like rushing to solutions. And I think the future AI will help organizations develop that comfort with complexity. And I think number two is it will go from focusing on individual change to understanding how changes ripple through entire systems. Right? If you throw a stone into a pond, you would be able to describe like what are the pattern ripples that it will create. And I think the future AI will help organizations understand how changes in one area create cascading effects throughout the system. And then finally, number three, I think it will be more deeply integrated with day-to-day work rather than like a separate activity. I think it will be having like a trusted colleague that you can instantly help, ask for help to reflect on a challenging interaction or decision point, or help you understand the company strategy, and will provide kind of in-the-moment support for navigating complexity. And so my vision and sort of like the work that I'm doing, both on like the board of ACMP and as a CEO at Pandatron, is basically directed towards like, okay, how can we create organizations like this flock of birds that can, change direction with remarkable coordination, and sort of responding to change as a coherent system.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Dima, Sam, and Tim, for sharing your insights. We really want to check in with the audience and get their questions. So what I'd like to do is ask the audience to enter your questions into the Q&A box on Zoom. Again, try not to use the chat, but focus on the Q&A. And then I'd like to invite Dr. Dan V to join me. Dan is a PCC certified coach and senior organizational development advisor for the Moffitt Cancer Center. Dan, what questions are coming up from the audience?
A lot of great questions. Several questions have really centered around credibility and receptivity. So for the panel, if participants were receiving similar feedback, similar instructions from a real person versus an AI and technology, what is the level of them being receptive to it, them being open to it? Have you had any opportunities to see that happen in real life, or what is your thoughts on that? Maybe start with Theresa.
Yeah, go ahead. Why don't we start with Sam?
I mean, it's a very good question. I suppose that the data that I have available on this, and which is not really data, completely anecdotal. I mean, that's a very strong use of the word, isn't it? I am not a researcher, in case you hadn't picked up on an absolute practitioner. Is that when I used to work in an organization where coaching was available to every single person in the organization, that was, a big thing. We have a coaching culture. If you want a coach, you can ask for one at any time and you will get one. It was an organization of 4,500 people. And at any one time, we would have, let's say, 5% of the workforce were in a coaching relationship of some sort, which we thought, that's great. Isn't it nice that 5% of people have taken that step? When we roll out AI Coach.chat, we expect take-up of that to be, oh my gosh, so much higher than 5%. If it was only 5%, we would be thinking we have done something seriously wrong here, because the product we would expect absolutely is a bit of a bell curve. There are some people that are never going to use it because they just don't want to, and some people are going to use it all the time. Most people are going to actually interact with it at some point. Let's say 50%. That's already 10 times what that proportion would have been when it was humans. And I fundamentally believe, I'm sorry, technologists, I think that human coaching is better. I think it's different, but I prefer it myself. So I find it very interesting. I actually think that adoption of AI can be, can be really, really surprisingly high when we compare it with a human. It's only really when it's mandated that people go along with that.
Thanks, Sam. Dan, what else have you got there?
There's a lot of interest in how can those on the call learn about AI systems with regard to change management as well as coaches. So how can they enhance their understandings of how to implement these systems into their use as change practitioners or coaches?
Tim, what do you think?
Yeah, we have well, there's the research report that's available that dives into communication support, content creation, strategy and planning, automation, efficiency, and data analysis as the 5 main use cases that change practitioners are starting to weave it in to the way that they do their work. So there's certainly research and writing out there about that. And then the other thing I'd encourage you to do is go play. Go start doing it. Because if you're not in there flexing and pushing, especially in something you know well, you're not going to start to understand the boundaries and capabilities and how you can start to weave them in and bring them in. So whether it's for work you're doing something, or maybe for fun you're doing something, really dive in and start to play with this new interface to zeros and ones so that you can understand where and how you can start to bring it into the work that you do.
Fantastic. Dima, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'll add something. I think it will actually be useful. But it is, self-promotion in a sense. But we are starting a podcast with some of the top thought leaders in the world. So, for example, Jeffrey Pfeffer, who is one of the top academics on power, Amy Edmondson, who invented the whole notion of psychological safety, Barry Schwartz on decision making and wisdom. So people who are thought leaders in change, bringing them together with thought leaders in AI. So, for example, Christian Goodman will have who has 60 AI patents and was a VP of AI in IBM and a bunch of other companies. And yeah, the first episode I think is coming out in the next couple of weeks. And I hope that people like it. And the purpose of that is exactly to answer this question. So
awesome. Dan?
Yeah, and we saw several themes around not only how can AI be implemented into coaching, but what can coaches learn from AI? So essentially, what best practices are being learned through AI, and where can coaches go, and how can they start to implement what is being learned from AI to be able to enhance their skills as a coach or change practitioner?
That sounds like a perfect question for Sam.
Oh. Sorry, how long have we got? Because I'll keep us quite a while on this. I think that there are 2 ideas that I would probably suggest people could go in. One is to incorporate your thinking around AI into your reflective practice. I'm really big on supervision as an idea for coaches. And I think take to coaching supervision. This is what I'm thinking about AI. How then can I apply that into my practice? So the obvious thing for me is, if my coaching approach is, I don't interrupt, I ask open questions, I stick closely to models, I've got to change. How can I change? What can I do that is different that I'm offering that an AI can just never go there? And we think about, somatic coaching and stepping into metaphors a little bit more and using intuition a lot more like that. That's a good space to be in. But the second approach that I would suggest taking is to use AI as a reflective practitioner, not as a replacement for supervision, but as a tool that can input into it. So an idea is to take a transcription of a coaching session, of course, with the permission of the client that you're working with. This is what I did. I think it was quite fun, is to then go down line by line and annotate, why did I ask this question? What was I thinking at this time? Take out the client's words to keep it as confidential as possible, but then upload that file into an AI and say, you are a coaching supervisor who's expert in the ICF coaching competencies. Absolutely roast me on what I'm doing as a coach, and just see what it comes back. Because when a machine is judging you, you don't really care. You can take it a lot more than when a human is doing it. And I did that for myself, and it was pretty cool. So yeah, I'd really suggest that's a good idea to do.
That's a really neat idea. Thank you. Dan, I think we have time for one more question.
Yeah, and we did our best to take themes from all the questions, and here's one where we saw consistent themes. how can we as coaches and change practitioners ensure we keep the human magic in our practices while we augment our work with AI?
Dima, what do you think about that?
I think that, I mean, I know more about the change side of things, and I would say that there, frankly, I don't see that the magic is being lost. If anything, I think we are adding more magic to the mix, because I think that you're going to keep talking to the C-level people, you're going to keep talking to all the change champions, but then you would have AI to add some of that magic and basically have an extension of you that can talk to like 200,000 employees, right? So that's my perspective on the change side, and perhaps Sam or team can add on the coaching side.
Yeah, Tim, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's helping people appreciate that we are freeing up us and the computer time to do the human and human work. That is the payoff of effectively integrating this new capability and new technology into the work that we do. And so to me, it's really around, it's not about getting that email done. It's about getting that email done so that I can go speak with Bill or John or Sam. And then I'd encourage, stay at the forefront. Just keep watching what's going on out there, because it is fascinating the challenges that people are able to unlock now, because they are able to play with zeros and ones like they've never been able to play with zeros and ones. And I love Sam's comment around the Zoom notion, right? Like everything we just experienced in the last hour is all zeros and ones getting passed through lines. Like that is how it happens. And we can start flexing those in a whole new way, which is, I think, the frontier of this AI capability. So I have a screen where I have my entire bio written in binary code. It's just a whole bunch of little tiny zeros and ones. But then after that, I show my bio written for executives in 120 words, written for project managers in 80 words, written in Mexican Spanish and in Quebecan French, because that's the power of once my bio is in zeros and ones, we can now flex it like we never have before. So stay curious and stay leaning forward and engaging in this stuff that's going to help you accomplish what you've set out to faster, at higher quality, and less with less mental strain, and with more, hopefully more enjoyment, because that's what it's all about.
Phenomenal. Sam, we have about a minute. What are your thoughts?
I'll keep it brief then. I think stay aware of technology, educate yourself in every possible way that you can. And fundamentally, right at the beginning of this, I said coaching is a human engagement, and machines, maybe, we feel like they shouldn't have a space. So let's be fully human with ourselves and with our clients. It's an exciting time.
Yes. Well, thank you again, all of you. It's been wonderful to have you here. And we appreciate all your insights, and what a cross-section of knowledge and experience. So thank you for letting us learn from you. We're going to go and get ready to close the event. And to do that, I just want to let everybody know where they can get everything. Let me just throw up a slide here so you have a sense. Okay, there we go. There we go. So, basically, we want to thank you so much for coming today. This has been so much fun to plan and so much fun to interact with you about. And we want to make sure that we understand what you think about your experience with this webinar. So please complete the survey to provide your feedback, and stay tuned for the email that it will be coming to you within. Don't forget to get credit. So for ICF members, this event merits 1 resource development credit. You can also get a professional development unit for ACMP members. And basically what you really want to do is stay in touch to get the recording, because that's going to be coming out within the next week. And you'll see that in the ACMP resource library and the ICF learning portal for members. So without further ado, again, we really want to thank you for all of your time, and hope this was very enlightening and enjoyable. Take care.